Stillness Is the Key by Ryan Holiday. October 1962. The world is holding its breath. For 13 days, humanity is balancing on a knife's edge. Soviet nuclear missiles have been discovered in Cuba, practically in America's backyard. Inside the White House, the generals are hammering the table, voices thick with urgency. Strike now, they insist. Show them what we're made of. We can't afford to look weak. The pressure on the young president, John F. Kennedy, is crushing. Every tick of the clock brings the world closer to nuclear catastrophe, a war that could wipe out 70 million souls in the opening salvo. His own advisors are demanding immediate military action. The ghost of his past failure at the Bay of Pigs whispers doubts in his ear. But then, something extraordinary happens. Right in the eye of this hurricane, Kennedy becomes the stillest person in the room. While everyone around him is reacting on pure adrenaline, he's stepping back to reflect. He asks everyone to pump the brakes. He takes long, meditative swims in the White House pool. He sketches sailboats on his legal pads, his mind searching for that quiet place of crystalline clarity. He refuses to just go with his gut. Instead, he goes deeper. Rather than simply reacting, he seeks to truly understand. Why would the Soviets make this move? What's their endgame? How can we navigate out of this nightmare without anyone's finger touching that button? This moment, this remarkable display of composure under unthinkable pressure, captures the very essence of what we're diving into today. How do you find clarity when the world is screaming in your ear? How do you make the right call when panic seems like the easiest path? The answer is an ancient secret, a superpower that emperors, warriors, philosophers, and artists have been praising for millennia. Author Ryan Holiday has devoted his life to rediscovering this wisdom for our modern chaos. In his remarkable book, Stillness Is the Key, he hands us a roadmap to this timeless truth. Holiday isn't just churning out books. He's a modern-day philosopher on a mission to take the dense, often intimidating teachings of Stoicism and other ancient wisdom and translate them into practical tools for our frantic lives. NFL coaches use his work. Silicon Valley CEOs swear by it. World leaders reference it. Why? Because it actually works. Today, I want to share that wisdom with you. Here's my promise. By the time we're done, you'll understand the 3 domains of life you need to master to find inner peace. You'll discover the secret that helped Kennedy save the world, that empowers the greatest athletes to perform under crushing pressure, and that can deliver the clarity and happiness you've been searching for. This isn't about escaping to a mountaintop for hours of meditation. This is a practical guide to finding stillness in a traffic jam, during a brutal exam, or when facing the biggest decisions of your life. This is how you unlock everything you're capable of. So let's dive in. To understand stillness, we need to start where all the noise begins, inside our own heads. Picture your mind as a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, it'll never clear up. The noise of the world, the endless notifications, the news alerts, the worries, everyone's opinions, is constantly shaking that glass. But if you just let it sit still, the mud settles, and suddenly you can see right through it with perfect clarity. This is the first great challenge. As the philosopher Blaise Pascal noted centuries ago, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Think about that for a second. We've got devices in our pockets specifically engineered to make sure we're never bored, not even for a moment. We fill every quiet second with a podcast, a video, a scroll through social media. But what are we sacrificing in the process? There's this fascinating performance artist named Marina Abramovich. In 2010, for her retrospective at a New York museum, she did something absolutely wild. The exhibit was called "The Artist is Present," and she meant it literally. For 79 days straight, she sat silently in a wooden chair, hour after hour. Across from her sat an empty chair. One by one, over 1,500 strangers came and sat facing her, just looking into her eyes. She didn't speak, didn't move. She just existed for 750 hours. People who sat with her broke down in tears. Why? Because having another human being give you their complete, undivided attention, truly being fully present with you, is one of the rarest experiences in our modern world. Marina couldn't be mentally planning her grocery run, or replaying yesterday's conversations, or thinking about tomorrow's schedule. If her mind wandered for even a heartbeat, the person across from her would have sensed it. She had to be completely, utterly in that moment. She said afterward that the hardest thing in the world is to do something that's close to nothing, because it demands everything you've got. This is what Ryan Holiday means by being present. It's the bedrock of mental stillness. Most of us drift through our days like ghosts. We're at dinner with family but mentally still at the office. We're at work but daydreaming about the weekend. We're watching a gorgeous sunset, but instead of just experiencing it, we're fumbling for our phone to capture it, already composing the caption we'll post later. We're never fully where our feet are, and because of that we miss out on life, on the brilliant idea trying to break through, on the genuine connection with the person right in front of us. The greatest athletes understand this deeply. In the biggest moments, they're not thinking about the future or dwelling on the past. They're locked into the now. They see the ball like it's moving in slow motion. That's what stillness does. It slows down the game of life so you can finally play it at your best. But how do you actually get there? How do you silence the endless chatter in your head? Step 1. Protect your mind. You've got to be ruthless about limiting your inputs. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's greatest military minds, had this brilliant rule for his correspondence. He told his secretary to wait 3 weeks before opening any mail. When he finally got around to reading the letters, he was consistently delighted to discover how many of those supposedly urgent problems had simply resolved themselves. He was guarding his mental real estate from the trivial. He had another rule. His messengers were never to wake him for good news. Good news could wait till morning. But bad news? Wake me immediately, he'd say, because then there's not a moment to lose. This is genius-level life strategy. We're drowning in information. The 24-hour news cycle, the infinite scroll of social media, the gossip, the manufactured drama. We convince ourselves we need to stay informed, but mostly we're just cramming our heads with noise. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, said that if you genuinely wish to improve, you must be content to appear clueless about things that don't really matter. Imagine what truly meaningful pursuits you could dedicate your mental energy to if you weren't trying to keep up with every new streaming show, every political scandal, every celebrity meltdown. The important stuff will still be there when you check in. The unimportant stuff will have revealed itself for what it is, unimportant. You need to become the bouncer at the door of your own mind. Once you've started filtering the incoming noise, the next step is dealing with the noise already rattling around inside. For that, we need to learn how to empty the mind. There's this great story about a professional baseball player named Shawn Green. In 2002, he was suffering through the worst slump of his career. He was a star player for the Los Angeles Dodgers, earning millions, and he literally couldn't hit a baseball to save his life. The fans were booing him mercilessly. The media was tearing him apart. And inside his own skull, a vicious voice kept screaming, "What's wrong with you? Have you completely lost it?" Hitting a baseball is already one of the hardest feats in professional sports. You've got less than half a second to react to a tiny ball screaming toward you at 90 miles per hour. As the legendary Yogi Berra put it, you can't think and hit at the same time. The anxiety and self-doubt of a slump make it nearly impossible. Sean Green had studied Buddhism, and he knew he couldn't think his way out of this spiral. He had to do the opposite. He had to stop thinking altogether. He needed to empty his mind of the pressure, the expectations, the critics, the contract negotiations. He had to trust his years of training to take over. One morning before a game, he headed to the batting cage. With each swing, he wasn't trying to crush a home run. He was just focusing on the simple mechanics. He repeated an old Zen proverb to himself, like a mantra. Chop wood, carry water. Chop wood, carry water. The meaning is simple. Just do the work. Don't overanalyze. Don't get lost in your thoughts. Just be present with the task in front of you. That day, Sean Green stepped into the batter's box. In his first at-bat, those doubts started bubbling up again, but he let them float past like clouds. He emptied his mind. Then, on the third pitch, crack! A double. Next inning, he launched a 3-run homer. Then another home run, and another, and another. In a single game, he hit 4 home runs, something only a handful of players have achieved in baseball's entire history. It was one of the greatest individual performances ever recorded, and he did it by emptying his mind. The moment he stopped forcing it, the moment he released his desperate grip, his true ability emerged. This is what the great masters have been teaching for centuries. The Tao Te Ching says that when you form clay around emptiness, it becomes a pitcher that can hold water. The room you're sitting in right now is useful because of the empty space defined by the walls. Our minds work the same way. By creating emptiness, we make room for insight, for creativity, for brilliance to flow through us. We have to learn to quiet the barking dogs in our heads. Now, this doesn't mean we should stop thinking altogether. It's not about being mindless. It's about being intentional. After you empty your mind of clutter, you need to slow down and think deeply. This brings us to one of the most beloved figures of the 20th century, Mr. Rogers. For over 30 years, his show opened with the same subtle symbol, a blinking yellow traffic light. The message was crystal clear. Slow down, be thoughtful, pay attention. Fred Rogers' favorite quote came from The Little Prince: "What is essential is invisible to the eye." He believed we're constantly deceived by surface appearances. We jump to conclusions, we rush to judgment. But if we just slow down, if we let the muddy water of our perceptions settle, the truth reveals itself. When tragedy struck and children were frightened by the news, he'd offer this beautiful piece of wisdom from his own mother: always look for the helpers. In the midst of chaos and fear, he taught children to slow down and find the goodness, to see what was essential but invisible to a panicked eye. This is the kind of deep thinking we need to cultivate. Not the anxious overthinking that Sean Green had to overcome, but the deliberate, reflective thinking that sees the complete picture. Zen masters would give their students perplexing riddles called koans, like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? The point wasn't to find a quick answer. The point was to force the student to think so deeply, to sit with the question for so long, that they reached a new level of understanding, an illuminating insight called satori. You don't reach satori while racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You have to slow down, you have to look beneath the surface. You have to fish for answers in the deeper waters of your mind. And one of the most powerful tools ever created for this kind of deep thinking is the simple act of journaling. When Anne Frank turned 13, she received a small diary as a gift. Just 24 days later, her family was forced into hiding in a cramped attic in Amsterdam to escape the Nazis. For the next 2 years, that journal became her greatest source of comfort and support. She wrote that paper has more patience than people. In that tiny, suffocating space, with the constant terror of death hanging over her, she used her journal to process her feelings, to understand herself better, to grow as a person. She would review her own entries, challenging her previous thoughts, trying to see herself as an outsider would. This wasn't just a diary. It was what philosopher Michel Foucault called a weapon for spiritual combat. The list of great leaders, artists, and thinkers who kept journals is staggering. Marcus Aurelius, Leonardo da Vinci, Queen Victoria, Oscar Wilde, Virginia Woolf. They weren't writing for an audience. They were writing for themselves, to slow their racing minds, to clarify their thoughts, to make peace with themselves. A journal is where you can ask yourself the tough questions. Where am I sabotaging myself? Why do I care so much about what others think? Do I control my fears, or do they control me? You don't need a fancy leather-bound notebook or a special pen. The point is just to do it. Carve out a few minutes each day to be alone with your thoughts and put them on paper. It's like spiritual windshield wipers, clearing away the grime so you can see the road ahead. But a clear mind, even one that's present and reflective, isn't enough. This is where Ryan Holiday introduces the second domain, the spirit, your soul, your heart. Because mental stillness will always be temporary if your soul is aching with emptiness or burning with uncontrolled desire. And there's no better story to illustrate this than the tragic and ultimately triumphant life of Tiger Woods. On the golf course, Tiger Woods was the living embodiment of stillness, the focus, the mental toughness, the ability to block out a roaring crowd and sink a championship-winning putt. He could command his mind and body with almost superhuman discipline. In 2008, he won the U.S. Open on a leg that was broken in 2 places. Nobody even knew he was injured. That's how strong his mental game was. But beneath the surface of this calm champion, powerful and destructive currents were swirling. The monk Thich Nhat Hanh once observed, "On the surface of the ocean there is stillness, but underneath there are currents." For Tiger, those hidden currents were about to pull him under and tear his life to pieces. His downfall is well documented, the affairs, the scandal, the public humiliation, but the seeds were planted long before. His father, Earl, was a complicated and abusive man. To teach Tiger mental toughness, Earl would jingle change in his pocket during Tiger's swing, shout insults at him, and use psychological intimidation that, in his own words, no civilized person ought to inflict on another. The training worked. It created a cold-blooded assassin on the golf course. But it also created a man who was spiritually shattered. A man taught that winning was everything, that appearances were all that mattered, and that the word enough was for losers. So even with all the fame, all the wealth, all the championships, Tiger was miserable. His mind was a fortress, but his soul was an empty, aching void. He chased pleasure not for genuine joy, but to numb the pain of a stolen childhood and a relationship with his father steeped in tragedy. His story is a powerful warning. You can have the strongest mind in the world, but if your soul is out of balance, it's all meaningless. As Jesus asked, "For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" So how do we cultivate a still and healthy soul? Holiday lays out a clear path. First, we must choose virtue. This isn't some dusty, old-fashioned concept. Virtue is a practical moral compass. It's having a clear sense of right and wrong, knowing what you stand for. The Stoics called it the highest good. A person who knows their values doesn't agonize over every decision. A person who lives with integrity doesn't live with the constant anxiety of being a fraud or a cheat. Marcus Aurelius would write down epithets for the self: upright, modest, sane, cooperative. These were his North Star. When you have that kind of inner clarity, you possess a source of strength and peace that nobody can steal from you. Next, we must work to heal our inner child. Many of us carry wounds from childhood. Maybe our parents were too critical or too absent. Maybe we experienced something that left a scar. These old hurts can unconsciously drive our adult decisions. We see every boss as a critical parent, or we seek out relationships that replicate the painful dynamics we grew up with. Leonardo da Vinci, for all his genius, spent his life searching for the unconditional love of a patron because he never received it from his own father. We have to recognize that scared, hurt child inside us, not to blame them, but to comfort them. As Thich Nhat Hanh teaches, we must hold that child gently and say, "It's okay, I know you're hurt, but I'm the adult now, and I'll take care of you." Comedian Gary Shandling, who survived a deeply traumatic childhood, found a beautiful formula for this: give what you didn't get. If you didn't receive love, give more love. If you didn't get support, give more support. This is how we break the cycle. We must also be wary of desire, lust, envy, greed. These are the great destroyers of peace. Like Tiger, like JFK with his reckless affairs, a person enslaved to their urges isn't free. They're a prisoner. The ancient philosophers weren't Puritans. They were pragmatic. They understood that chasing desire is an endless, miserable treadmill. Epicurus taught a simple test. Before you chase something, ask yourself, what will happen to me if I get what I want, and how will I feel afterward? Often, the hangover isn't worth the drink. The disappointment of getting what you wanted can be worse than the pain of not having it. And this leads to one of the most powerful ideas in the entire book: learning to say enough. There's a wonderful story about authors Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller at a billionaire's party. Vonnegut nudged his friend and said, "Joe, how does it feel knowing that our host probably made more money yesterday than your novel Catch-22 has earned in its entire history?" Heller's response was pure wisdom. "I've got something he can never have," he said. "What's that?" Vonnegut asked. "The knowledge that I've got enough. That is true wealth. That is genuine stillness. Not the endless, ravenous wanting for more, but the deep, peaceful contentment with what you already have." Most of us are on a treadmill, believing that the next achievement, the next promotion, the next purchase will finally make us feel complete. But it's a lie. We get there and the goalpost just moves further away. Enough doesn't come from external things. It comes from within. As Lao Tzu said, when you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. Finally, to find spiritual stillness, we must cultivate a sense of connection, the understanding that all is one. The ancient Greeks called it sympatheia. It's the profound realization that we're all parts of one great body. Astronaut Edgar Mitchell experienced this when he saw Earth from space. From 239,000 miles away, all the petty squabbles, the borders, the conflicts just melted away. All he felt was a deep connection and compassion for every single person on that tiny blue marble. This is the ultimate antidote to ego, to selfishness, to the feeling that only our problems matter. When we can truly feel that we're all in this together, our personal anxieties shrink, and a profound sense of peace becomes possible. Now we have a still mind and a still soul, but these two are housed in a physical vessel. And if that vessel is neglected, abused, or out of balance, it creates turbulence that ripples through our entire existence. This is the third domain, the body. And for this lesson, our guide is Winston Churchill. Churchill seems like the complete opposite of stillness. He was a man of titanic energy. He wrote over 40 books, painted 500 paintings, delivered thousands of speeches, and led Britain through its darkest hour. He was an absolute force of nature. And yet, his secret was a deep understanding of physical stillness and balance. When a young man asked him the secret to his success, Churchill replied, "Conservation of energy. Never stand up when you can sit down, and never sit down when you can lie down." This wasn't laziness, it was strategic preservation. He conserved his energy for the things that truly mattered. His life was a masterclass in managing the body to support the mind and spirit. First, he built an ironclad routine. Every day was structured. From the moment he woke up, took his bath, read his correspondence, worked on his books, took his afternoon walk, and had his 2-hour nap. Even in the middle of a world war, he stuck to this routine as much as humanly possible. A solid routine isn't boring. It's a platform for excellence. It automates the trivial decisions, what to wear, when to eat, freeing up your higher mental powers for the real work. It creates order in an unpredictable world. He also understood the power of saying no. This is the lesson of the Roman general Fabius, who was sent to fight the terrifying Hannibal. Instead of rushing into battle, Fabius did nothing. He shadowed Hannibal's army, harassing them, cutting off their supply lines, but refusing to engage in a major fight. The Roman people called him a coward. They demanded action. But Fabius knew that Hannibal was far from home, and time was Rome's greatest weapon. He practiced what the Taoists call wu wei, strategic non-action. He was waiting for the perfect pitch. So often we feel pressured to act, to do something. But the wisest move is often to wait, to be patient, to say no to the immediate impulse. Churchill also understood the importance of physical movement. Not frantic exercise, but deliberate, restorative activity. He took long walks around his country estate every afternoon. So many of history's greatest minds were dedicated walkers. Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Charles Darwin, Steve Jobs. A walk isn't just exercise. It's a form of moving meditation. It gets blood flowing to the brain. It clears the mental fog. It unlocks ideas. As Kierkegaard wrote, "I have walked myself into my best thoughts, and I know of no thought so burdensome that one cannot walk away from it." And perhaps most importantly, Churchill cultivated hobbies, real hobbies. He was an enthusiastic bricklayer and a passionate painter. These weren't just distractions. They were essential for his mental health. He wrote that, to be truly happy and safe, a person should have 2 or 3 hobbies. Why? Because they engage different parts of our brain and body. They allow the overworked parts to rest and recover. Politics was stressful, chaotic, and often thankless. But laying a perfect row of bricks, painting a beautiful landscape, these were pursuits where effort was directly rewarded, where he could be fully present, where he could find a different kind of stillness. He said the paint colors were delicious to squeeze out. That's the joy of a genuine hobby. It's not about being good at it. It's about the process itself. And finally, Churchill, for all his tremendous energy, knew when to rest. He understood the supreme importance of sleep. This is a lesson many of us have forgotten. In our culture, we wear sleep deprivation like a badge of honor. "I'll sleep when I'm dead." we say, as we unknowingly accelerate that very day. There's a tragic story about Dov Charney, founder of the billion-dollar company American Apparel. He believed in having a completely open-door policy. Any employee could call him any time, day or night. As the company grew, his phone never stopped ringing. By the end, he was sleeping only a few hours a night, if at all. He was living in the company warehouse, mainlining caffeine, making erratic and terrible decisions. His lack of sleep, his complete disregard for his own body, drove him into a state of cognitive impairment equivalent to being legally drunk. And he drove his company straight into the ground. Sleep isn't a luxury. It's a biological necessity. It's when our brain cleans itself out, when our body repairs itself. It's the foundation of our health, our energy, and our sanity. The greatest performers, like master violinists, sleep more than average people, not less. The Zen master Hakuin was said to have slept for nearly a month straight before delivering one of his most brilliant lectures. He wasn't being lazy. He was recharging his batteries. If you want to be your best, you have to prioritize sleep. But all of this, a still mind, a still soul, a still body, serves a purpose. It's not an end in itself. Stillness isn't about withdrawing from the world. It's about preparing yourself to engage with the world more bravely, more wisely, and more effectively. This brings us to the final, crucial lesson: we must act bravely. In Albert Camus' novel, The Fall, a man is walking home one night and hears the sound of a woman falling into a canal. He hesitates. He doesn't want to get involved. He keeps walking. For the rest of his life, he's haunted by that sound, by the shame of his own cowardice. He had all the appearances of a good man, but in the moment of truth, he failed. Contrast this with the true story of French philosopher Anne de Foumantel. In 2017, she saw 2 children drowning in the ocean. Without a second's hesitation, she rushed into the waves to save them. She herself didn't survive. Which is better, to live a long life haunted by cowardice, or to live a life, however brief, in complete alignment with your deepest values? Stillness gives us the clarity to know what's right, but it must be paired with the courage to do what's right. The health of our ideals depends on what we do with our bodies in moments of truth. We're not clearing our minds and calming our souls for a parlor trick. We're doing it so we can be of service, so we can step in when someone's being bullied, so we can tell the truth when it's hard, so we can be the helpers that Mr. Rogers told us to look for. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, we find true delight and stillness when we move from one unselfish action to another. This is the final piece of the puzzle. We cultivate inner peace so we can bring more peace to the world around us. Mind, spirit, body, 3 domains, one harmonious whole. This is the path to stillness, a path to a life that's not just successful, but meaningful, not just productive, but peaceful. And when the end comes, as it does for us all, we can face it as the great ones did. The Roman Emperor Antoninus Pius, on his deathbed, spoke a single word to his successor, Marcus Aurelius: equanimitas. Equanimity. Calmness of mind. Buddha, in his final moments, told his followers, "All individual things pass away. Seek your liberation with diligence." They were calm. They were clear. They were still, because they had lived well. And as Leonardo da Vinci taught us, as a well-spent day brings a happy sleep, so a well-employed life brings a happy death. That is the ultimate promise of stillness, a life well lived. As we wrap up our journey through Stillness is the Key, I want you to just sit with this idea for a moment. Stillness. It feels like such a rare commodity in our world, doesn't it? Our phones are constantly buzzing. Our calendars are jam-packed. The news cycle screams for our attention around the clock. We live in an age that celebrates speed, productivity, and being always on. And into this chaos, Ryan Holiday offers this ancient, almost radical idea. The key to a better life isn't to go faster, it's to slow down. The key isn't to do more, it's to be more. What I find so powerful about this book is that it demystifies this concept. It shows us that stillness isn't some mystical state reserved for monks on mountaintops. It's a practical, achievable skill. It's a muscle we can build every single day through small, deliberate actions. For you, as a young person standing at the beginning of your adult life, this might be the most important skill you can learn. The world will constantly try to pull you in a million different directions. It'll tell you that you need to be busy to be important. It'll measure your worth by your follower count, your grades, your future salary. Stillness is the antidote to all of that. It's your secret weapon. It's the ability to find your own quiet center in the middle of the storm, to listen to your own voice instead of the noise of the crowd. It's what'll allow you to think clearly when everyone else is panicking. It's what'll give you the wisdom to build a life of meaning, not just a life of frantic activity. The lessons in this book aren't just theories, they're invitations to a different way of living. So how can you start today? Right now? Here are 3 simple practices you can begin immediately. First, start a stillness journal. Don't put any pressure on yourself. Just take 5 minutes every morning, before you look at your phone, and write. You can simply ask yourself one question: what is truly essential for me today? This simple act of putting your thoughts on paper will bring incredible clarity. Second, take a daily unplugged walk, just 15 minutes. Leave your phone at home. No podcasts, no music, just you and the world. Walk around your neighborhood, look at the trees, notice how the light hits the buildings, listen to the sounds. Let your mind wander where it wants to go. You'll be amazed at the ideas and peace that find you in these quiet moments. And third, practice the art of saying no. Our culture tells us to say yes to every opportunity. But wisdom lies in knowing what to decline. This week, find one small, unimportant thing to say no to. Maybe it's a social plan you're not excited about, or an extra task that'll stretch you too thin. By saying no to the non-essential, you create space to say a powerful, wholehearted yes to the things that truly matter. The world will always be loud. The challenges will always be there. The question is whether you'll have the inner strength and clarity to meet them. Stillness isn't about escaping from life. It's about being more fully present for it. It's the key to unlocking your potential, to finding happiness, and to building a life of purpose and peace. It's a key that's been passed down through the ages, and now it's in your hands. That was a summary of Stillness Is the Key by Ryan Holiday. We've journeyed through some big ideas today, exploring timeless wisdom that can bring peace to our chaotic lives. But this has just been a map. Reading the book itself is the real journey. It's in those quiet moments, when one of Holiday's stories or a single, simple phrase connects with you in an unexpected way, that the real transformation happens. This summary is a doorway. If these ideas have sparked something in you, I genuinely encourage you to walk through it. Grab a copy, because spending time with this book isn't just learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you navigate your daily life. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found a little bit of stillness with me today, I'd be honored if you'd join our community by subscribing and hitting that like button. We explore a new, life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf every episode, searching for wisdom that lasts. Let's keep growing together.